Hi, I'm Jennifer Barnes, and I'm talking about the current financial crisis and how it's making many people question the wisdom of globalization. International Monetary Fund, in its articles on globalization, point out that while there are many good reasons for globalization, there are many people that are now screaming about protectionism. Protectionism has many considering postponing trade reforms, which IMF feels would be a very costly event for everyone. Some countries, such as Brazil and China, have recently tried to use trade remedies to help their lagging economies. There's growing animosity about globalization effects. These are said to bend the backbone of the Occupy movement and the Arab Spring uprisings last year. With so many people who are unemployed or underemployed, the emotions tend to run high when individuals feel that their jobs are now in other countries. In fact, a South Park episode mocked this event when they had the whole town screaming, "They took our jobs." For business to not consider globalization, which would allow them the best pricing and supply of raw materials, a wider scope from which to sell their finished goods, and the opportunity to have these finished goods produced by cheaper labor would be folly. But can a company withstand the growing calls for protectionism? An example of this is the current dilemma between Foxconn and Apple. There's now pressure on Apple not to use a company that is forcing its employees to work in unethical conditions. But Apple wants to do that because it's a way to keep their products pricing affordable. So, what is a good business practice for a company? Without globalization, they face making a product that in the end would be more expensive versus using globalization and facing the wrath of the general population who are now against taking those opportunities out of the country the business is operating in. The article had pointed out that there's another concept to this whole globalization issue, and that is the effect this slowing global demand is going to have on the countries that have currently been enjoying the benefits, Asian countries in particular. Perhaps globalization is the right idea, but maybe we need more effective ways of producing it. With free trade and open markets, it's kind of like a heyday when no one cares about who it loses as an outcome. I think it's important for a company to develop a set of standards that encompass the benefit of globalization but considers all aspects that it will have as an end result before they commit to something being a good idea. IMF, along with the World Bank and WTO, held a trade conference in December 2011. The topics of how the changing pattern of global trade were discussed. Value-added analysis versus gross exports is needed in examining trade interlinkages and the implications for the responses of trade flows to exchange rate changes was one of the hot topics. IMF is calling for trade integration, where trade will contribute to, not detract from the global recovery. A trade finance survey that will monitor the risk and also the global supply chain and have an in-depth look at the value-added trade flow and what implications for the trade interconnectedness and exchange rate assessments will be considered in the survey. The protectionist responses to globalization was also considered. It was determined that right now there's no major protectionist action that's widespread, but there are major impacts for the particular products that protectionism is impacting. Finally, IMF will be developing a new index of protectionist pressure. This index will consider growth rates, unemployment, imports, exports, exchange rates, etc. I think a more conscientious future will be ahead of all of us if we allow the good features of globalization to blossom and use that momentum to beef up the areas of concern. Thank you.